They say revenge is a dish best served cold. In Korea, they have a saying too: you meet your enemy on a narrow bridge. But what they don't tell you is what happens when revenge leads you to something you never expected. When the narrow bridge becomes the path to everything you never knew you needed. This is my story. The story of how I married my enemy's rival and fell in love with my husband. It started with a laptop and ended with everything I thought I knew shattering like glass. I was in Marcus's apartment in Gangnam, the heart of Seoul's wealth and power. I'd gone there to surprise him for our one-year engagement anniversary with champagne and hope. I had no idea I was about to discover the truth that would destroy everything. His laptop sat open on his desk. I wasn't snooping, not at first. But then I saw it. An email with my father's company name in the subject line: OB Import, Export, Final Phase of Acquisition. I opened it. And then another. And another. Months of correspondence lay before me. Marcus had been systematically destroying my father's business, using information I'd shared with him, intimate details about contracts, partnerships, vulnerabilities, to sabotage everything my father had built over 30 years. There were projections. Timelines. He'd planned this from the beginning. From before we even met. He'd targeted me specifically because of my family's company. I was never his fiancé. I was his key to accessing their business secrets. Marcus arrived home early. When I confronted him with the evidence, he didn't deny it. He laughed. He told me how easy I'd been to manipulate, how desperate my father's company had been for international connections, how trusting I'd been. All he'd had to do was compliment my analysis, pretend to care about my dreams, and I'd handed him everything he needed. When I called him a monster, he corrected me. He was a businessman. My father's company was vulnerable. I was the access point. Nothing personal. Just very profitable business. I slapped him. He had security escort me out. As I left, he told me not to bother warning my father. By morning, the final acquisition papers would be filed. His company would be Marcus's. A breakup gift, he called it. I went home to my small apartment in Seoul, the one I'd kept even after getting engaged, telling Marcus I needed my independence. Thank God I had. I couldn't bear to be in his space another second. I called my family in Lagos via video chat. Children's voices and cooking sounds filled the background, the warmth of home, now tainted by what I knew. My mother answered, happy to see me, saying my father wanted to discuss something. When my father's face appeared on screen, I saw how much he'd aged. The stress had carved lines into his face, stolen the light from his eyes. He told me about the business difficulties, contracts falling through, partners pulling out. It was like someone had been poisoning their relationships. 30 years of building, and now he wasn't sure they'd survive the month. My mother mentioned he hadn't been sleeping. The worry in her voice broke something in me. I promised to fix it, though my father couldn't understand how I could help from Korea. He suggested I come home, forget Seoul. But I refused. I told him I could fix it from here, that he needed to trust me. I told them I loved them and ended the call before my voice could break. After hanging up, I sat in my apartment, rage and shame burning through me. This was my fault. I'd trusted the wrong man. Given him the ammunition to destroy my family. But then I saw something, a news alert on my laptop. Kang Ji-hoon vows revenge against Marcus Chin. Korean tech mogul promises to destroy business rival who cost him African market deal. Kang Ji-hoon. The Ice Prince, they called him in Korean business circles. Brilliant. Ruthless. Cold as winter. Marcus had destroyed his deal with a Nigerian tech startup 2 years ago, costing him $300 million and his reputation in African markets. We had something in common. We'd both been destroyed by Marcus Chin. And I had something Ji-hoon would want: information, access, the ability to bring Marcus down from the inside. The idea was insane. Dangerous. Desperate. But desperate people make desperate choices. And I was very, very desperate. I spent the night researching Kang Ji-hoon. Every article. Every interview. Every business move he'd ever made. Kang Ji-hoon, 32, CEO of Kang Industries. Orphaned at 15 when his parents died in an accident. Built his tech empire from nothing through pure brilliance and determination. Known for his strategic mind and complete emotional control. He'd never been seen with a romantic partner. Colleagues said he lived for his work and nothing else. 2 years ago, Marcus Chen had sabotaged Ji-hoon's deal with Nigerian startup Afritech, causing him to lose face with African investors and 300 million in projected revenue. Ji-hoon had publicly stated he would destroy Chen's business. To date, he'd been unsuccessful. That's where I came in. I knew it was crazy, walking into a stranger's office and proposing marriage. But I had nothing left to lose. My family was losing everything. My pride was already shattered. What was one more risk? By dawn, I'd made my decision. I was going to offer Kang Ji-hoon the one thing he couldn't get anywhere else, me. Kang Industries' headquarters rose above Seoul like a glass and steel monument to power. I'd never felt smaller walking into a building. The receptionist was cold, dismissive. No appointment meant no entry. When I mentioned Marcus Chen's name, she called security. In desperation, I raised my voice, declaring that Marcus had destroyed both our families and I could help Kang Ji-hoon destroy him back. A voice from behind stopped everyone. Let her up. The elevator ride to the penthouse was the longest of my life. My heart hammered. My hands shook. I was about to walk into a stranger's office and propose marriage for revenge. Ji-hoon's office was like him, cold, perfect, intimidating. All glass and minimalist furniture overlooking Seoul. And there, standing by the window, was the man himself. He was taller than I expected. More everything than I expected. Sharp features that could have been carved from ice. Dark eyes that looked like they could see through to your soul. His perfectly tailored black suit probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. He gave me 60 seconds to explain myself. I took a breath and steadied my voice. I told him who I was, Marcus Chen's ex-fiancé. I explained how Marcus had used me to destroy my father's company, using every business secret I'd shared in confidence to systematically sabotage my family. I reminded him of what Marcus had done to him 2 years ago, the destroyed Afritech deal, the $300 million, the humiliation in front of African investors. Then I told him why I was there, because I wanted revenge, and so did he, and I could give it to him. He gestured for me to sit, granting me 5 minutes instead of 60 seconds. I explained my offer. I had access to everything. Marcus's business patterns, strategies, vulnerabilities, next moves. I knew how he operated because I'd been close to him. I could give Ji-hoon all of it. When he asked what I wanted in exchange, I told him, destroy Marcus completely, professionally and personally. Make him lose everything the way he'd made my father lose everything. Ji-hoon noted that was hardly a balanced arrangement, me providing information while he did all the work. I took a deep breath and revealed my full proposal. I wanted him to marry me. The request cracked his perfect composure. I rushed to explain. Marcus was hosting a major business gala in 3 weeks with important African investors, the same ones Ji-hoon had been trying to rebuild relationships with. If I showed up married to his biggest rival, specifically a Korean tech mogul interested in African markets, it would humiliate Marcus publicly and make those investors question his judgment. But it had to be real marriage, legal and binding. Marcus needed to see he hadn't just lost me, he'd lost me to someone better. Marriage meant I'd have Ji-hoon's name, his protection, his resources. Marcus couldn't come after me if I was legally his wife. Ji-hoon noted I was asking him to marry a complete stranger for revenge. I confirmed, yes, for 1 year. We'd maintain the marriage, take Marcus down together, then divorce quietly. He'd get his revenge and restore his reputation with African markets. I'd get mine and protect my family. A business arrangement. Nothing more. Ji-hoon stood and walked to the window, silent for a long moment. He acknowledged it was unusual, even for him. I explained that I'd known Marcus for 2 years, loved him, trusted him, and he'd destroyed my family while I slept beside him. At least with Ji-hoon, this would be honest, a transaction with no feelings, no deception. Just revenge. After another long pause, Ji-hoon turned and laid out his terms, 1 year exactly. We'd dismantle Marcus Chen's business and reputation completely, then divorce quietly and professionally. I'd sign a prenuptial agreement protecting both parties. I agreed. He extended his hand, asking if we had a deal. I took his hand, confirming we did. When our hands touched, something electric passed between us. Unexpected. Undeniable. We both felt it. Neither of us acknowledged it. We were too smart for that. Too focused on revenge. We had no idea how wrong we were. Ji-hoon's lawyers drew up an ironclad marriage contract within hours. The terms were clear: marriage of convenience, separate living spaces, no romantic expectations. I would provide intelligence on Marcus's operations. Ji-hoon would execute the business strategy to take him down. My family's Nigerian company would be acquired by an anonymous Korean investment firm, Ji-hoon's, though they'd never know. We'd maintain perfect appearances in public as the devoted couple. Both of us signed with witnesses present. Ji-hoon informed me we'd marry in 3 days at Seoul City Hall in a private ceremony. When I expressed surprise at the speed, he explained that he never did anything slowly. When he committed to something, he committed completely. The intensity in his eyes when he said this made me shiver. He asked if that was a problem. I told him no. His assistant would take me shopping, he continued. As his wife, I'd be in the public eye constantly and would need appropriate attire. The way he said "my wife" sounded possessive, claiming, even though this was supposed to be purely business. 3 days later, we stood in Seoul City Hall for our wedding. It was small and elegant, just witnesses, Ji-hoon's assistant and lawyer. No family. No friends. No one who actually cared about us. Ji-hoon arrived in a black suit that probably cost more than a car. I wore a simple but stunning white dress with Korean-style elegance. Everything felt surreal, businesslike, like signing a corporate merger rather than entering a marriage. The ceremony proceeded in Korean and English. I understood enough Korean by then to follow along, though the words felt hollow. For better or worse, in sickness and health, promises we didn't mean, vows that were just legal formalities. Until the officiant said we could kiss. Ji-hoon looked at me with those dark, unreadable eyes and said we should make it convincing, the witnesses would talk. He cupped my face with surprising gentleness. The kiss was meant to be brief and formal, a performance for appearances. But when our lips met, something ignited between us. His hand tightened on my waist. My fingers curled into his suit jacket. The kiss deepened for just a moment, both of us caught in something neither expected. When we finally pulled apart, his usual composure had cracked, confusion visible in his eyes for just a second. I was breathless, disoriented, my carefully constructed walls suddenly feeling very thin. We signed the marriage certificate in silence, neither willing to acknowledge what had just happened. The car ride to his penthouse was thick with tension we refused to name. Ji-hoon's penthouse in Hanam-dong was everything I expected and nothing I wanted: ultramodern, minimalist, cold perfection. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Han River. Everything was in black, white, and gray. No warmth. No personality. No indication that a human being actually lived there. He showed me to my room, a guest suite that was luxurious but impersonal, like a high-end hotel. His room, he informed me, was in the opposite wing. We'd maintain appropriate distance. I set down my single suitcase. Marcus had kept most of my things, and I hadn't bothered fighting for them. Ji-hoon noticed the single bag and mentioned that his assistant would take me shopping tomorrow. I needed a complete wardrobe. My pride flared. I told him I didn't need him to buy me things. His response was cutting but practical: I was his wife now. I'd be photographed constantly. This wasn't charity, it was strategy. But then his tone softened unexpectedly. He added quietly that Marcus had taken everything from me. He wanted to give something back. The unexpected kindness caught me off guard, creating a crack in my armor. Ji-hoon continued laying out the rules. In public, we'd be the perfect Korean power couple, respectful, devoted, traditional. In private, we were business partners. Nothing more. I agreed to the terms. He said dinner would be sent up, that I should rest. Tomorrow, we'd begin our campaign against Marcus. Then he left, and I was alone in a stranger's home, married to a man I didn't know. But somehow, inexplicably, I felt safer than I had in months. 1 week into our marriage, we worked together in his home office. I provided detailed information about Marcus's business dealings, patterns I'd observed, deals I'd overheard, vulnerabilities I'd noted during our relationship. Ji-hoon studied everything with intense focus, his brilliant mind analyzing and strategizing. He identified Marcus's play, acquiring a Nigerian tech startup cheap, then selling the patents to Chinese companies for massive profit while destroying the startup's independence. Within hours, Ji-hoon had made his move. He acquired the startup first, at fair value, ensuring it remained independent. Marcus lost $80 million and a crucial market position. News broke immediately. Kang Ji-hoon outmaneuvers Marcus Chen in historic African tech deal. The subheading mentioned his new wife, Nigerian business analyst Chidera Obi, and her likely role in the victory. Marcus called me, furious. I answered on speaker so Ji-hoon could hear. Marcus demanded to know what I was doing, called me insane for marrying Kang. He accused Ji-hoon of using me just like he had. My response was ice cold. I told Marcus I was doing exactly what he'd taught me, using people to get what I wanted. But unlike him, Ji-hoon was honest about it. And when Ji-hoon destroyed Marcus, I'd get to watch. I hung up on his sputtering rage. Ji-hoon watched me with something like respect, noting I was more ruthless than he'd anticipated. I met his gaze steadily and told him he had no idea what I was capable of when someone hurt my family. Our eyes locked, intensity building between us like a current. The air felt charged, dangerous. Ji-hoon stood abruptly, announcing he had a late meeting. He told me not to wait up and left quickly. As the door closed behind him, I wondered if he was running from the situation, from me, or from whatever was building between us despite our carefully drawn boundaries. The next 3 weeks became a study in beautiful torture. We maintained our careful distance during the day, working together to systematically dismantle Marcus's empire. But the walls between us were crumbling. Our morning routine developed organically. Ji-hoon would make Korean coffee. I taught him to appreciate Nigerian tea. We'd share breakfast in comfortable silence, reading news articles about Marcus's latest failures. Strategy sessions lasted late into the night. We'd huddle over laptops, analyzing data, planning our next move. Ji-hoon taught me Korean business etiquette. I taught him about Nigerian market dynamics and the cultural nuances he'd need to rebuild his African business relationships. We learned each other's stories. Ji-hoon had been orphaned young, built everything alone. He didn't know how to let people in because everyone he'd ever loved had left him. I shared my family stories, showed him photos of Lagos, helped him understand the warmth of the community he'd been missing. He was fascinated by my capacity to love after being hurt. I was humbled by his vulnerability when he chose to show it. My family thrived now, though they didn't know Ji-hoon was responsible. During video calls home, my father looked healthy again, my mother smiled more. Ji-hoon would watch from the doorway as I spoke to them in Igbo, something soft and longing in his expression. One night I found him on the balcony, staring at Seoul's lights. When I asked if he couldn't sleep, he admitted he wasn't used to someone else being in his space. I asked if he wanted me to leave. His pause felt eternal. Then he said no, he'd gotten used to me being there. That was concerning for him. We stood in comfortable silence, shoulders almost touching, the walls between us continuing to crumble brick by brick. After 2 months of careful maneuvering, we made our final move. We presented Korean authorities with comprehensive evidence of Marcus's crimes, corporate espionage, fraud, manipulation of African markets, insider trading. His company's stock crashed within hours. The Korean business community turned on him with particular vehemence. In a culture where honor meant everything, his disgrace was absolute. He faced criminal charges and likely deportation. I watched the news coverage with mixed feelings. Vindication, yes. My family was saved. Marcus was destroyed. But there was also an emptiness, because I knew what this meant. Our arrangement was ending. I said quietly in Korean, "I'd been learning, it's done." Ji-hoon responded in Igbo, "He'd been learning my language too, yes. It's finished." The fact that he'd learned Igbo, that he'd taken the time to honor my culture and language, made my heart clench with emotion I wasn't supposed to feel. Our contract ended in 2 days. Neither of us wanted to acknowledge it. 2 days before our contract's expiration, I started packing. Each item I folded and placed in my suitcase felt like tearing away a piece of myself. This penthouse had become home. This cold, perfect man had become everything. Ji-hoon found me packing, his expression carefully controlled as always, but I'd learned to read the minute cracks in his composure. He asked what I was doing. I explained that our agreement ended in 2 days. Marcus was destroyed. It was time for me to go. He asked, with careful neutrality, where I would go. I told him Lagos. My family needed me. I should go home. The words felt like lies even as I spoke them. Seoul had become home. He had become home. Then Ji-hoon asked the question that changed everything. What if he asked me to stay? My hands stilled on my suitcase. I said his name, barely a whisper. He clarified, not for the contract. Not for revenge. For him. Would I stay for him? I turned, tears already forming. I asked why. His answer came with visible difficulty. This man who'd built his entire life on emotional control. Because somewhere between revenge and now, I fell in love with my wife. His voice broke slightly, this perfect, controlled man finally breaking. He told me he loved how I made tea in the morning, how I argued with him in Korean when I was angry, how I lit up during Sunday calls with my family. He loved my strength, my warmth, my capacity to believe in goodness after being betrayed. I closed the distance between us and kissed him, cutting off his words. Against his lips, I whispered that I loved him too. I'd been in love with him for months but had been too scared to hope we could be more than an arrangement. Ji-hoon pulled me close and asked me to hope, to stay with him. Ji-hoon made a new proposal, no contract this time. Stay married to him for real. Build a life together. I asked what kind of life. He painted a picture. We'd split time between Seoul and Lagos. He'd invest in African tech, and I'd run that division. We'd build an empire together. Maybe have a family someday. He just wanted me, in his home, in his life, for real this time. I asked about the rules. No separate rooms? He smiled, rare and beautiful. Definitely no separate rooms. No contracts. Just us and whatever we built together. I asked about the cultural differences, his family, Korean society's expectations. His response was perfect. His family was gone. I'd taught him what family really meant. As for society, he switched to Korean, then English, let them talk. I was his wife. That was all that mattered. When we kissed this time, there was no holding back, no walls, no contracts. Just two people who'd found love in the midst of revenge. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But sometimes, revenge leads you exactly where you're meant to be. I set out to destroy the man who hurt me. Instead, I found the man who would stand beside me, who learned my language and my culture and my heart. Together, we built something neither of us knew we needed. 6 months later, we stood in Lagos at the grand opening of Kang Ji-hoon Technologies. The building was a fusion of Korean and Nigerian design, modern glass and steel merged with traditional Nigerian architectural elements. It was beautiful, like us. My entire family was there, beaming with pride. Ji-hoon spoke to my father in Igbo, and my father embraced him like a son. My mother pulled me aside and said I'd found a good one. I told her I knew. I really, really knew. As we celebrated, Ji-hoon pulled me close and whispered in my ear in Korean, "Thank you." I responded in Korean, "For what?" His answer was everything, for being brave enough to ask me for revenge. And patient enough to teach me how to love. We kissed as cameras flashed around us, no longer pretending, no longer acting. Just a Korean man and a Nigerian woman who'd found each other in the darkest way and created something beautiful from it. Sometimes the narrow bridge where you meet your enemy becomes the path to everything you never knew you needed.